Hello and welcome to Digital Dealer Webinars. This is Kate Chester from Dealer Communications. We're here today with Michael Stoll, the Director of ADP's Professional Services Group. Mike has been with ADP for 9 years and has over 36 years of retail automotive experience. He and the Professional Services Group focus on design, setup, and execution of cutting-edge workflows for all departments in retail dealerships as well as OEMs. Today, Mike will be demystifying the challenges behind higher service absorption and help you learn how to make 100% service absorption a reality for your dealership.
We're first going to define the service absorption piece itself and make sure that we got the right definition. We're going to review the latest trends that dealerships are doing and they're trying to reverse. We're going to look at some proven strategies to increase the service absorption. Then we're going to do the math. Then we're going to open it up for some questions and answers, and I look forward to those as well. So fixed coverage, what is it? Well, the definition is service and parts total sales minus the cost of the labor and part sales divided by the total dealership's fixed expenses, not including anything in the variable operations. So now that we've got a pretty clear understanding of what fixed absorption is, let's take a look at what absorption rates you might have at your dealership. So what we'd like to do is have you answer this question. Based on the definition provided, what fixed absorption rate do you have? And I'll give you about 10 or 15 seconds to figure that out. And while you and your team are figuring out what your fixed coverage is right now, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and we'll keep moving here. Trying to figure out where fixed coverage is at right now and what we're going to do to be able to win that number back, we first have to understand what happened. Where did the money start to slip away out of the fixed coverage? Where did the defection and the customer retention efforts really start to slip? Well, part of the strategy and part of the reasons was not back in 2006, there were 84 million vehicles on the road here in North America for us to service. And then you can see what happened in the marketplace coming out of 2007, 2008, when the sales retail started to decline. There was obviously going to be less vehicles in the service departments to be able to service. One of the other pieces, if that decline was happening, the new vehicle sales, we knew that were starting to drop. So when the new vehicles were starting to decline in sales, a couple natural things happened. Obviously, the warranty gross profits were declining. The amount of audits that may have been coming into the dealerships potentially could start to decline. And then the other thing that was starting to happen at the same time, that the vehicles were actually getting built better. So you've got really the three perfect storms that were hitting at the same time. Well, in 2012, we were down to 63 million vehicles in North America to be able to service. So we had a natural phenomenon that happened where our retail sales and fixed operations were declining. And we may have known this or not. Now they're suggesting going into the end of 13, 14, and 15 that that vehicle volume might start to creep back up again. But what we're going to talk about today are 4 business strategies that you can put in place to be able to improve your fixed coverage as that time exists. So one of the things we do need to look at too is the actual year-over-year parts and labor sales. In 2011, sales in all of North America were up 5.2%, and the net profits were down 2.9%. And if you take a look at what that means is we had a financial statement that we looked at from all retail vehicle dealerships in North America. So it was every single new car franchise. One big financial statement. That's where we got this data from. What was missing? How could we be up in sales 5.2 and profits down 2.9? When we dug a little deeper, we found out that the customer pay sales or customer pay labor sales, they were down by almost $800 million in the year 2011 alone. If you look at 2010, about the same. 2009 was a little bit less. So the customer pay labor rates were continuing to defect at an alarming rate across North America. So now when you got vehicle sales down, you've got cars getting built better, you've got 800 million worth of customer pay labor that's going away, it makes sense why sales could be up and the profits were down. Wow, we're in fixed operations. We are the fixed operations department of the car dealerships. What do we have to do to reverse those trends? Well, let's take a look and figure out exactly what the mix might have looked like in our shop. Here's a maintenance versus repair mix, again, of all across North America for all dealerships. And if we look at 2006, the mix in the business in all the shops was 56% maintenance and 44% repair or gravy or the high-paying effective labor rate jobs. As we go to 2007, 8, 9, and 10, we can see that the maintenance was actually starting to improve as a total percent of the mix, and the repair jobs were actually diminishing. Well, that's not good. Now, there's a lot of factors that help weigh into that. There were manufacturers that were giving away maintenance for the term of the retail for shorter periods of time if you leased the vehicle. There were dealerships that were trying to improve the customer pay or the retention rates by offering free oil changes on the first visit. And boy, is that a tough trough to try to reverse, because customers are telling us in the focus groups that we did, once they offered to me for free, I'm not sure if when they start charging me for it, if that makes me feel good. So kind of a different topic for a different day. But and then the real difficult part of this is the repair. Why are the customers going someplace else to get the repair work done? Do they think that we're too high? Well, I can only tell you a story. In 1976, I was a couple years into college, and I didn't have a car, and I was about 8 hours away from home. And I get home, and my grandfather said, "Hey, grandson, we're gonna go down and look at some cars, because you're doing good in school, and you need to have something to ride." So I'm all excited, and we go down to the local car dealership, and we're walking around, and there she sits, a 1972 Chevrolet Malibu, red, white bucket interior, and I'm like, oh man, that is it. And so the salesman, he gets us a little test drive, and we get back in, and the salesman says, "Just sign right here. It's $36 a month for the next 36 months." And I'm getting ready to sign, and Grandpa grabs my hand, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You sign that paper, and then next month you got to pay the money." And I said, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You don't have a job. You're going to college." He said, "I'll pay $6 a month, and you pay $30 a month." I said, "Okay." So I'm getting ready to sign again. He said, "Grandson," he said, let's take a walk." So he's trying to give me a life lesson right now that I am humbled for and grateful to this day. So he walks me around the lot a little bit, and he's talking to me about school and priorities and job and paying your bills on time. And I wasn't really sure if that was really the lesson he was trying to tell me then or not, but it resonated, and I ended up getting the job, and I ended up knowing that I would make good on the promise that I made to him. So we go back in there and we sign $36 a month, and man, all I could think about was that $30 I needed to come up with in 30 days, and how fast that Malibu was going to accelerate as I ramped onto the highway. There was only two things in mind: the $36 and me looking cool going fast. So we get back to his house, and he says to me, he says, "Man, you took that corner a little fast, and you were really accelerating, and you might want to." I mean, he was still being a grandfather, and I love him for that. But he says, "The one thing I want you to make crystal clear: when you get back down to school, you find yourself a little garage that changes the oil, rotates the tire. Don't you go back to that car dealer, because they are too expensive." That's right. So several decades ago, the whole automotive industry has been thinking about or talking about, don't go to the dealer because they're too high. And we've allowed the defection to happen in several different channels, and we're going to talk about that. So where do you think those customers went? And it hadn't just recently happened. Where do you think they went? So what the independent survey that we found through our partners at J.D. Powers and Associates said that in the very first year of ownership, 80% of the customers will and do come back to the new retail dealership, but 20% of them are naturally going to go someplace else. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, about where that 20% actually goes in the first year. And what they're also saying, that you have an 80% chance of getting them into the dealership on the first visit if you have an airtight first service appointment process. So if we can get 80% of them coming back the first year, and 20% we know we're going to go someplace else, we better figure out what an airtight first service appointment process is for our customers, because by the time year 5 gets here, it's going down to 56-44 based on they sell the car, they move away, some things that we really can't control. And the whole name of the game today is retention, retention, retention. Customer experience, customer experience, customer experience. So how do we transition the customer from the sales department into service and make it look like all one big happy experience for the consumer? Now, does that mean the sales department and the service department need to get a campfire setting and figure out what this first service appointment process is going to look like? It sounds like it. And does the accounting department need to be part of that, so the dealer principal and the general manager and everybody is all in on this new customer experience and customer retention strategy? That's really what we're talking about today. And if we get that type of business strategy in place, then we will slowly start to turn the ship in order to win back the customers and improve that fixed coverage. So let's take a look at what happens to those customers in the first year of ownership. We already talked about 80% of them are going to come back to the dealership if we're airtight in the first service appointment process. But in the first service, besides oil changes that were performed at the independents, what other kind of work is those customers doing? Well, 71% of the consumers, and again, according to our partners at J.D. Powers and Associates, are going to the independent shops. 7% the work is getting done by themselves or a friend, and 22% are defecting and going to another dealership. And it's not really a defection statement, it just happens to be in their route of travel from home to their work or vice versa, and they just felt that the dealership gave them a better car deal, so they are always going back to the other dealer, and a multitude of other reasons. But the type of work that's actually getting done in that first year was broken down into 4 major categories: major maintenance, brake work, replace the tires, and repair. And you might be sitting there going, Mike, I'm not sure in the first year if major maintenance, brake work, replace the tires, and repair is going to happen in a new vehicle customer. And I agree with you totally. But what we did find out through lots of interesting research is this button right here. This button right here, replace the tires. Now, when we dug into that area, it meant a couple different things. So the survey that we did of the consumers that we were having in our focus groups said, how many of you on the cars that you bought spent something extra on that car within the first year of ownership? And about 85% of them raised their hand. So then we finally dug down and found out that the average that they spent was right around $500. So we had a study that said $500 is being spent to customize or upgrade or make new on a brand new vehicle. And again, the $500 average was all the way from the entry-level vehicles in North America all the way up to the highest of the highest line. Again, we had a financial statement of all in, and we had a pretty good cross-section of those type of owners as well when we were doing this study. Some people didn't do any, some of the high lines did a lot, and the ones in the middle, so the number was about 500. When we got over to the trucks, the number was closer to $1,500. So we started to think, man, when did we actually push the customer away? When did we actually say, hey, go on down to the independent and get that work done? Well, I can remember a couple decades ago, we were talking about tires and wheels, and we were talking about sunroofs, and we were talking about remote starts, and all the things that we really didn't want to mess with in the car dealership because we couldn't figure out how to put it in. It became warranty issues later and all that kind of stuff. But since the technology has improved, that stuff might have been easier to do, but we've already conditioned ourselves and our customers to go the independent. So when you take a look at replace the tires, it's kind of like, how can we win back the $500 or the $1,500 to our customers in the first year? If you think that I'm kidding on this particular topic, when we get done with this webinar, get in your car, grab your general manager, grab your dealer principal, and say, let's go for a drive. And you drive within a 1-mile radius of your dealership to the independent shops that are competing for your customers. And you just take a little piece of paper and keep track. You will find new vehicle customers that recently purchased a vehicle from your dealership in those independent shops getting this work done. You will also see, if you have a sharp eye, your used car customers that are in those independent shops getting the same work done. If you think about the used vehicles that we sell, and this is where I think the diamond in the rough is. In the old days, hey, don't bring the guy back to the service department because I don't want to get a policy adjustment and all that stuff. But today, heck, we're by and large reconditioning all the cars. They're frontline ready to go. They're certified. You know, we've done all the work. They're almost like a new car, but they're not titled that way. Those customers are still making those customized upgrades to their car. So, that being said, let's take a look at what actually happens if we move down to the strategies themselves. The very first strategy, easiest to implement, is setting and confirming the first service appointment for all new and used vehicle customers. Now, that is going to take a campfire setting with everybody in the dealership, directed by the fixed operations director, and fixed means fixed, talking about the long-term importance of the first service appointment. We are going to put a strategy in place, ladies and gentlemen, in order to set this first appointment, to call and confirm that first appointment, and then we're going to start measuring the results of those people that are showing back up. All in? Everybody in? You understand why and why we got to do this? We have to figure out how to do this, because I can tell you right now, there are people on this webinar that when they left the dentist office the last time, or they left the last time to get their hair cut, or they left the last time for multiple other service, the last thing they did is set your next appointment up. And you became conditioned for going back in. There was a couple other factors why you went back, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if we don't get the first service appointment confirmed out of that sales cycle, how in the heck are we ever going to get them to come back in over and over and over again? We got to be proud of what we stand for, and the fixed operations department is fixed. That's why they call it fixed. One is fixed and one is variable. So we'll talk about that in a minute and some of the strategies and why the people do it. The second is, and we thought this was interesting, they said review future recommended maintenance and set the next customer appointment. Now, when we started digging into this this consumer group, we said, well, tell us what you think the ideal future state is. They said, tell me what's coming. And then we asked them, hey, well, how do you see it going right now? They said, well, I go into the car dealership, I tell him what's wrong with the car, he tells me it's going to be $350, and at 4 o'clock I come back and pick it up, it's $450, he's happy, and he shakes my hand, and I go on about my merry way. And we said, well, what's wrong with that? And they said, well, that's not what I want. I mean, I want him to be transparent and open and price it to me and know that I got the best technicians working on my car and the best parts for the price that I was willing to pay, and I'm back at my dealership getting all this work done. But when I go to check out, I want him to tell me what's next. I don't want him to just set the appointment. I want to say, hey, you've got 188,000 miles on that 2004 Suburban you're driving there, Mike, and your 30K is coming up and it's $540. Oh my goodness, you should have heard the gasp in the room. The customer said one thing, the service advisors are going, you got to be, how do I do that? I mean, you want me to sell this $400 job today, convince the technician and the parts guy and the running back and forth with the paperwork, and then sell the customer, collect the money from them, or the cashier does, and then you want me to tell them that in 9 days it's $540? And the customer said, yes, that's what we want. I need to budget. You know, it's not like a cheap job that was a couple decades ago when we learned this strategy. I need to put this in my budget. I want to take care of my vehicle. I want to make sure that this investment or this vehicle or this family car that I'm driving, that I'm doing what's recommended. I want to have the 30K done on my 188,000 mile vehicle. Because if you don't take my money or remind me to come back in, I'm going to stick at the mechanic that I'm used to doing. They went, oh. So that's what the customers are saying. Review the future recommended maintenance on exit, and then set the next appointment. And then you got to put a process in place to call and remind them to come back in. So now we're getting into some business strategy stuff. This is kind of cool because it kind of dials into people, process. We got to have the data right, and then we got to have technology in order to streamline all this, because we got a lot of customers, and maybe we're not paying attention to the technology that we have currently in our dealerships, and how do we get better at using that so we can better improve our productivity. The third bullet point is consistent, repeatable electronic service menu pricing and future recommended service. So what the marketplace was telling us, consistent, and we said define that for us, and they said, every time I come in, whether I come in, my wife comes in, my daughter comes in, my dad comes in, we want it the same way. We want to make sure that whether I bring the car in, my wife brings the car in, I send my daughter in with her car, that they are treated exactly the same way. And we'll get into what that means a little bit further along when we look at the math. But I will give you an example of a repeatable electronic service menu pricing. I want you to visualize or imagine that a repeatable electronic service menu pricing looks something like this. So figure my 2004 Suburban, and I want you all in the room to think full-size vehicle, full-size SUV, and I've got a water pump problem. And I want you all to think you're 600 plus service advisors right in a row. And I'm going to go down the row, and I am going to get a price from each one of you on my water pump. Kind of like the same thing that happens in every dealership in America today. There's 4 or 5 service advisors side by side and negotiating with every customer that they talk to. And not because that's the way that they design, that's just the model that we have in the industry right now. And the consumers are saying, I don't want to play that game. So here I stand in front of all 600 of you, and I want you to take a piece of paper, and I want you to write down what it's going to cost for the water pump on my Suburban. In the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, you got your number? Well, I can tell you that the low number of all 600 of you is $400. And I will tell you that some of you wrote the $600 number down, and some of you wrote the $800 number down. Well, the answer is you're all right. And the customer's saying, bravo, bravo, you're all right. I want to see the $400 job. I want to see the $600 job that includes the 2 hoses, the clamp, the belt, and the thermostat. And I want to see the $800 job with everything that's in menu 1, menu 2, plus the type of oil change, fluid changes that I need to get. The customer does not want to get that $400 quote today, and then when you give them a 2 o'clock status update, get bumped the $200 for the hoses, the belt, and the thermostat. They're saying, man, when I go to McDonald's in Seattle, Washington, the number 1's got the same content as they do in Tampa. Why can't the car dealership just give me all that data right up front in the morning? Let me choose right now. I don't want to look forward to the dreaded bump call at 2 o'clock. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to go back to the car dealer because my grandfather in 1976 said, you're too... Okay, so you get it. We're trying to change the mentality to improve the customer experience. And there's people on the call going, I don't want to give them my price. Well, that's what they're saying because they know you're going to bump them. I don't want to give them the price. Well, I understand because I don't have the technology in front of me in order to, every vehicle that's coming through in the fast write-up time in the morning, how do I get some sort of a VIN-specific write-up process where I can provide that menu? We agree with you. But the customer is saying, give us that information in the morning. Let me take a look at it and let me decide. Don't give me the $200 bump at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Don't call me. because I know you've been doing it to me for decades, and I want it to stop. I want you to give it to me up front, and I want to make the decision. I want to show up and it'll be the right way, and then I want you to remind me when I got to come back. I want to come back to you, Mr. Dealer, Mrs. Dealer. I want to come back, but you haven't been very transparent, and I'm giving you a chance. The fourth one is integrated appointment, electronic repair or dispatch service menu pricing with vehicle inspection. Now, you may notice by now that the easiest one to put into place might be number one, and I'm sure that there are some of you sitting there at the dealership right now going, hey, bring the BDC in here and let's talk about this. These are strategies. They take strategies, they take the right people to drive the strategy, the right process, the data clean, and the technology in order to measure all of these processes. If you don't measure and write it down and know who's accountable and what step of the process everybody's accountable by, this strategy will fail in the rules of 5. And I'll explain to you that after I talk about this integrated appointment. Integrated appointment means I can get online as a consumer and I can dial into all of your dealerships and I can see what date and time that you've got available for me to bring my 2004 Suburban in, and I'm going to tell you when I'm coming. It's not you telling me when to show up. It's me telling you, and you better have my car ready in that allotted time, plus or minus what work I got to get done, whether you have the parts or not. I get all that, but I'm going to tell you, oh, the gasp in the room when we talked to these service advisors went, you got to be kidding. I said, well, again, this is what the consumer side of this room's saying. We want to go on to a website and book a seat on a plane. We want to tell the airline company when we're coming, when we want to come home, what time we want to fly, what seat we want to sit in, and they allow us to go on site and do that. There's a couple hair cutting places here in North America where you can actually go online, hit a button, figure out where you're at. It shows you the closest hair cutting place to your location, and you check in before they even show up. And you walk in the front door and there's 7 people standing in line and you get to go to the front. Wow, that's a customer experience that I dig because I'm busy and they're busy and everybody's busy, but they didn't figure out how to use the integrated appointment system. That's where the market's at, and that's where the ones that are probably on this call already are. And it takes a strategy, which requires people, process, data, and technology to do. So electronic repair or dispatching, that's where the repairer gets opened up and you take your hands off the wheel, and based on technician skill sets and labor time guides and whatnot, that work gets pushed around the shop electronically. Technicians hit the button, the parts guys already proactively look at what he needs, and it's kind of a fluid motion that's it's not manual. And what I mean by manual, and I know most of us still are, where we write the repair order up and we go back and with a piece of paper and we tell him, and then he goes, the technician, and I love them. I think they're some of the hardest working people on the planet, trying to stay ahead of the vehicles and the cost of the equipment and whatnot, and somewhere between them and the service advisor. I think the models that are out there right now kind of put those two skill sets at a little bit of a disadvantage sometimes. And then there are parts partners who are mission critical to the whole piece. Here comes the paper and the smudged writing, and how do we get it back up to the cashier for a final post-final charges. So that electronic repair order dispatching process came into play about a decade ago, and I know that there are several people on this call. I saw the pre-registrations that have been working on this process, and they do have it in place, and they will probably suggest to you that the improvement that they got by electronically dispatching the work was somewhere between 12 and 17% in shop productivity. So integrated appointment, electronic dispatching, service menu pricing, we already talked about that. And this vehicle inspection was kind of interesting because the consumer said, if you could figure out how to inspect my car every time, I come back in and earn my respect back through the eyes of my car, you can win me back. And this fourth one and this final one down here is, and again, this is all about the people, process, data, and technology. So easiest one, number one. Number two is the second, third, fourth. Let me caution you. You cannot go out of a meeting today and take all these and put them in place and say, okay, we're shifting gears and here's where we're going. You first have to understand what you have technology-wise, but you have to map it out. The sales department, the service department, the accounting department, the owner, they all got to be all in. We're going to shift gears just a little bit, and here's why for the long-term retention and improvement of the customer experience of our guests. And that's where we stand. If you don't do this in a team environment, you will fail in the rules of 5. And the rules of 5 say when you strategically plan to shift gears, you have to have a measurement process in place and a process map in place. The rules of 5 says if you don't have those, you will fail in 5 hours, 5 days, or 5 months. It'll just become another best idea. We can't have just another best idea in fixed operations. If it happens again, what happened to us in 29, 10, and 11, the fixed operations department is designed to make sure that we've got 100% fixed coverage and keep our dealerships moving forward. So let's take a look at the math. I built this little car dealership model out of the average dealerships from all across the country, and 58% was the fixed coverage on average. Now, the average new and used vehicle sales per month was about 150 and 1,800 a year. Customer pay tickets was 833 annualized at about 10,000. The door rate was about $100 on average. The labor rate to parts sales was about 1-to-1. The parts margin was 71, and the labor margin was 71. The parts margin 42. Now I know that 42 seems a little high, but again, I had a all North American car dealership, so we just kind of blended it out a little bit, and I think you'll see what I'm trying to explain. So the way that you understand what I'm about to tell you moving forward is judge what you're about to learn on 10,000 customer pay tickets. If you have 5,000 customer pay tickets a year, divide obviously what I'm about to show you in net profit in half, and if you have 100,000 customer pay tickets a year, multiply what I'm going to show you about by 10. So let's go. First service appointment. Now we talked that strategy. Now I'm going to give you the nitty gritty and some of the math why you got to do this. So 38%, what does that data point mean? It basically says right now 38% of your customers are saying I definitely will come back into the dealership to start the customer pay cycle in the first year. And over here it also says that 7% says I'm not, 16% says probably will not, and 39% probably will. So we're, for the point of discussion, we're just going to look at the ones that says definitely will. And you didn't even have to offer a first service maintenance program or a first service visit appointment or nothing. They're just naturally going to come back in. Now, what it also says, the data point, is 57% of the customers that were offered some sort of a first service visit appointment and a confirmation will show back up. So think about this for a second. 38% of your customers, of the 80% we talked about earlier, 20% are already going somewhere else. So 80% of the people are going to come, but 38% of the customers saying I will come. But if you put a first service appointment process in place and confirm that, you can raise that opportunity by 19%. So I have to ask, is 19% lift in the monthly service visits going to improve your customer pay labor and fixed coverage? Is that going to get you a little bit closer to 100% fixed absorption? Yeah, you might say, yeah, but Mike, I don't want to sell them anything. I understand, and there's all kind of things going through your head, but I will tell you this: that the average repair order that we looked at was $200. It was a little bit over 202 and some change. But it was $200 in all of the repair orders that we sliced out that were actually first visit appointments by the most successful dealerships that do this already. And again, by the metrics we looked at earlier, it was about $113 in profit. Now, you might say, Mike, what in the heck are we going to do on that first service appointment? Well, I will tell you this. Unless you get out of the car and drive around to those independents to figure out what they're doing in that first year to get your customers $500 and their $1,500, you're not going to know. I will tell you a quick story. So I'm in a very, very large metro market, and I'm talking to one of my dealer friends, and he says, I don't agree with you, Mike, and I don't believe it. And I said, okay, let's get in the car and go take a look. So we drive around. The first independent we got to, he was shocked. There were 4 of his brand spanking new customers, brand spanking, meaning in the first year, sitting there in that lot. And we get to the second one. There's one. He said, "Okay, take me back. He said, "Would you go back over there and figure out what the deal is?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." So because I was curious at this point because I'd heard the data but I hadn't seen it. So I go back over. I take my jacket, my little name tag off, and I go back over there and say, "Hey, listen, my family is thinking about buying my dad a SUV, and I'm not in the same position as my family, but I'd like to get my dad a gift certificate for that SUV." He said, "Oh, that is a great idea." And this little guy that greeted me at the door, he was awesome. He's all full of bubbly and energy, and he says, "It's going to be a brand new one." I said, "It is." And he said, "Oh, well, you got to get him right over here right away, and here's what we're going to do." Well, he whips out this menu, and he says, "Here's the most exciting thing that's going on right now." He said, "We've got a $700 and a $900 and a $1,200 winch." I said, "A $7, a $9, or a $1,200 winch? You mean one of those things that mounts on the front with a long cable? If he gets stuck in the swamp, he can pull himself out by the tree?" He said, "Oh, yeah. Everybody," he was so fired up about this, "everybody's getting one." I said, "Every one of those other vehicles out in your parking lot are getting?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Everybody's got," he said, "drive around town, everybody's got one." And I'm saying, "Well, that's cool." He said, "So the most popular ones is $900 one. So if you're going to spend $1,500, I'll get you a gift certificate. Tell him about his $900 winch, and then tell him I'll take care of his maintenance and repair on the balance." I was stunned. So what would happen was that these independents are not only customizing our customers' cars, they're now grown up to the fact to taking care of their maintenance and repair. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, my grandfather would not allow me to go back to that dealer. This is the guy that he was talking about. We have made the independents rich. Now we got to figure out how to win them back. So that's where the RO count goes to $200 on average. Sell winches. Now those of you that are real high line, you're thinking, "Oh, Mike, I can't put a winch on the front of this fancy race car," and I get it. And all the ones that are the entry-level price points, that would look kind of weird with this winch on. Yeah, but drive around and figure out what your customers are buying. They are spending the $500 and the $1,500. You got to figure it out. And in that first service appointment, offer it to them. Right now, if you don't do anything else, you're already making $77,000. If you don't do anything at all, just keep what you're doing. Don't have a first service appointment process. You're already making $77,000 if you do 10,000 customer pay tickets. But if you have a first service appointment process, all-in strategy to win those customers back and improve that customer pay labor and improve that fixed absorption, you could get up to 115 grand. Now, 77 to 115 is 37,000. If you have 10,000 customer pay tickets, if you have 5,000, it's 20,000. Well, with 20,000 net profit improvement, your fixed coverage improves you towards 100% fixed coverage. The second thing is VIN-specific related repairs and service pricing. Now, not only is a service pricing tool, an integrated electronic tool, good for customer experience and retention, it allows that busy write-up area in the morning to write more tickets quicker and faster. And it's the good, better, best, or $400, $600, $800 strategy that we talked about earlier that the customer wants to see. That customer he knows the water pump's $400. He wants to see the $400 water pump with the with the two hoses and the belt and the thermostat and the clamps. They want to make that decision. But what the stats are saying is that 55% of all service pricing operations have at least one related repair, and the average is 2/10 to 2 hours. So now you got to be thinking, man, if I had a tool at the point of sale where my advisors aren't putting it peril all the time and run and try to figure out price, and I could give the good, better, best price to the customer right now, I might improve my productivity. Yeah, you might do that, but you also might improve the hours that you're selling, because now you're giving it to the customer, you hit the button, the technician is looking for the job, and everybody's just hitting buttons now as opposed to looking for paper. So this piece of math is going to shock you. Assumption being the service pricing generates 0.2 to 2 hours lift in a repair order. I just plugged this thing at 0.3 hours. So a service pricing tool, a good, better, best, the customer's choice, better experience, that strategy is going to improve your net profit on 10,000 customer pay tickets by $338,000. Huh. Well, I got to ask you, if the RO lift was 0.5 or 0.75 or 1 point, I understand. So I know that if you put $338,000 of net profit on your financial statement in the next 12 months, that you would get closer to 100% fixed absorption. Here's another one that we was shocked to understand. 50% of the service advisors do a walk around. Now, I'm looking at all 600 of you right now, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you think that you do 100% walk around. Now, those of you that think that you're 90%, raise your hand. I'll go ahead, look at each other in the room there. Make sure that nobody's 80%, 70%. The real number is 50%. And the reason, I'll give this to our friends at JD Powers. You've got cars that get dropped off the night before with the key box, and then you have customers that drop the car off in the morning, or waiters, and then you've got the customers that had appointments. So you get all this mix of business. So the reality is we might only get to 50% of the customers who really do a walk around face-to-face with the guest. The consumer says, I don't care. If I dropped my car off last night and you want to earn my business through the eyes of my car, you figure out how to do a walk around and then figure out how to electronically get me that information so I know that you looked at my car. I want to feel like I'm the only customer that you have. I want to come back to you like I'm your only customer. But you need to understand that I want to see what's wrong with my car because I want to maintain it, which is the second bullet point. Of the 50% that actually get a walk around, only 29% suggested other maintenance or repairs. I understand. I've been in dozens and hundreds of dealerships in the morning at 7 o'clock when that door goes up. I get it. It's our job to figure out how to be able to relieve those service advisors or those porters in a process where the customer can feel like they're the only one that we have, and we're walking around their car and we're seeing what they have, even the people that are waiting, even the people that drop the car off and they're sitting down at their office. So if 50% of your jobs are drop-offs, how do you make them feel like you did a walk-around? Do you send them an iPhone, a Droid video? Do you send them a snapshot picture? Here's a picture of me with my walker. How do you let them know that? They just think your car gets there and sits out in the back, and then you call them at 2 o'clock and bump them 200. That's what the customer perceives. So, thinking about that strategy, let's do the math again. If we could figure out how to do 100% walk around, all the customers that drove through, all the used cars, everything, and 100% recommended services, and only upsold 30%. And only upsold 30%, and that additional was 1 hour of labor. 1 hour labor to $1 of parts. That's another $338,000 bill. So I'm not suggesting that you will ever get to 100% walk around because you're going to have some slip through. I would suggest that you get that walk around for your used car manager because that all strategy, every seat in the airplane filled, overbooking, getting 120% productivity gains in service, overbooking every flight, requires that the process is done each and every time the same way in some electronic transfer of information that you can measure. But I know that $338,000 on bottom line of your financial statement will get you closer to 100% fixed coverage. Simple? It is. So this is the one where I was shocked. And I actually went out and tested this for myself. So what they're saying is if you're doing a vehicle inspection, you got an average closing ratio right now of 37% of upsells. Now, that sounds cool. Now, we asked the question, does that matter whether it's manual or whether it's an electronic inspection process? It was all about the same, okay? Because, again, we're looking at all dealerships all in, and some were doing none, some were electronic, some were paper. So the average closing ratio of an upsell of an inspected vehicle and additional work is 37%. When you lift the vehicle in the air, the closing ratio goes up to 56%. With the customer being able to see it. And I'm going, oh my goodness, we can't get back in the service department. We got that big yellow line between the write-up area and the shop, and for decades we've been saying, hey, don't come back here, insurance, all that stuff. The consumer's saying, you got better equipment today, you got better this, you got better that, and if you want me to come back into your shop and win me back as a customer, you better show me what you're doing. You know what? Again, it's the customers that are driving the ship. So I tested it out. My buddies at J.D. Powers and the Fixed Ops magazine guys, they said, hey, go down to go get a local guy. I said, I know the guy. He's my neighbor. He's gonna be shocked that I'm in there. So I get my 2004 Suburban. I go down there, and I walk in, and he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm here to have you look at my Suburban. He said, you got to be kidding me. You've been going to the dealer for all this time. I said, well, I'm going out of town tomorrow, and I got this little shimmy in the right front, like a balance or something in this tire. So, heck, I was a used car manager for part of my career, and I knew it was only a balancing, I was an expert, So he said, no problem. So he writes it all up, and he's got his little assistant there, and he drives around. He said, come on back, So we walk back through the write-up area and back into the shop, and I was like, I almost took a step. I went, where? There was no yellow line. There was nothing. Come on back. So I find myself standing under my 2004 Suburban that I had 188,000 miles on it for the first time ever. And I've been in the car business 38 years at this point, and I could count on one hand the number of times I've been under a car, let alone a customer get under one. I know it regularly, I get all that. But I'm amazed. I'd never seen under my truck. Here I am. I start in the back there, and I'm looking around. I'm mad at myself that I didn't rust-proof it, and so I get to the rear differential, and I see some leakage, and where it goes into the pump in there, and I'm going, man, there's a $300 bill. And he said, hey, here's the price. And as I'm walking from the differential up to the front, it dawned on me. I just bumped myself. I thought it was a $30 balance. I just spent $300. He didn't even say anything to me yet. The customers want to look at what you're talking about. So we get up to the front. He said, hey, see this tire right here? It's pushed forward a little bit, and he lined up the aluminum wheel, and he showed me where a little nick was. And I looked at the tie rod as $400, and I looked at the aluminum wheel as $300. I had went $300, $400, $300, $1,000. I put myself on the elevator, and my friend had not even said a word. I went from $300 or $30 to $1,000 at the blink of the eye. I said, Alan, I need the tire, the tie rod, and the rear joint, U-joint fixed because I've got a wife, I've got 3 daughters and 2 granddaughters, and they're going to be in this vehicle this weekend, and I'm going to be out of town. I said, just get it done. He said, you want to know what it costs? I said, it didn't matter. I was sold on the fact that if you can lift it in the air, take a picture of it, send it to them in video, take them back there, providing you standard all your local insurance regulations and whatnot. Allow your customers to get closer to their car. Let them know that you are intimate about improving that customer experience. And there's all kinds of ways to do this. But the average RO is 1.5 to 3.5 hours if you get it in the air and take a picture of it and post it on their phone or send them somewhere. But the real key to this is the technology. And if you send a picture, you send a video, how can you keep it in some repository so when they come back the next time, if they don't get the job done, that you can at least remind them and show it to them. They don't have to go back under their car again, but just show them. But I was shocked on this one. So let's do the math on this one. Right now, if you are inspecting vehicles, you're already getting a 37% closing ratio on 10,000 customer pay tickets and netting $548,000 annually. If you lift the vehicles and you can figure out a way to get the picture and or video, you're going to improve your closing ratio to 56% and somewhere around 1.5 additional CP hours. That number goes to $1 million. So let's say that you're already getting $500,000, you can go to $1 million, $398,000. That would improve your fixed coverage closer to 100%. And all you did is take a couple pictures, figure out how to let them walk back through there. The customer says, oh, yeah, that's cool. And you know what? Not only are you making more money, they're going, hey, that's cool. That's the customer experience I'm looking for. I'm going to let them get to know me through the eyes of my car. So, case study, pretty easy. 138 dealerships, May through January last year, improved their RO count by 149 tickets a month because they went to electronic dispatch. They give that service pricing, good, better, best price, so the consumer, and they got to know their customers through the vehicle inspection process. Not only did they go up 149 ROs a month, they averaged 9,400 in net customer pay labor at part sales. Net. That's incremental. So if you took 9,400 a month times 12, I know that that number would get you closer to 100% fixed coverage. So let's do the math again. First service appointment for all new and used vehicle customers. Everybody that's all in on talking to your dealer and all your new car managers about that strategy, raise your hand. Hey, there we go. That's $40,000 that you're going to help improve towards 100% fixed coverage. The perform a walk around and suggest maintenance on all. Again, it was 100% walk around and only upsell 30% of those customers. There's 338,000 if you're doing 10,000 customer pay tickets. Perform a vehicle lift inspection on all vehicles. Lift inspection and make sure that customer that you can show it to them or video it to them or send them a picture so they can see it and validate it. And they're looking for that customer experience tie-in. That's what that's all about. There's $398,000. Put a repeatable electronic service pricing menu tool in so you can improve the productivity in your shop and you can let the customers choose the good, better, best. That's $113,000. There is $800,000 in potential uplifts in customer pay annually, and I know $800,000 would get you closer to 100% fixed coverage. And again, I'm going to caution you, these are business strategies that the consumers are saying that they will give us a chance if we become more transparent and we make it more streamlined. Don't do them all at the same time. Get your team together. You're the fixed operations guy. It's your job to protect the future moving forward, to win the customers back in order to improve the customer experience. Get everybody to understand that this is a team effort. We're shifting gears just slightly, and we're not gonna sit still and let our independence continue, to be able to keep our customers. We're going to get them, and we're going to win them back. So we kind of defined service absorption. We looked at some latest trends that we're trying to reverse, the proven strategies to increase that absorption, and we did the math.